Right, picture this, me, sandwiched between my father, Lord Smuggington III, and my brother, who arrived 30 minutes late wearing sunglasses indoors like some Poundland James Bond. We're all sat in this overpriced, mahogany tomb of a solicitor's office, trying to pretend we're grieving and not just waiting to see who bags the biggest slice of Granddad's empire. There's a cheese board. Of course there's a cheese board. Because nothing says mourning quite like brie and blood money. My dad's face is already doing that thing, you know, that smug little smirk he gets when he's certain the universe is about to hand him a gold-plated victory. The same one he wore when he sold Mum's piano to fund his golf club membership. Classy, really. Anyway, the solicitor. Some graying man who looks like he hasn't blinked since. Dosmiatri clears his throat with all the ceremony of a man about to ruin someone's entire personality. To my son, he says, dramatic pause, I leave 100 million pounds. And I swear, I could feel the ego inflation happening in real time. My dad practically exhaled $50 notes. To my grandson, 50 million. And there it is, my brother, who once failed his driving theory test 3 times because he didn't believe in road signs, leans back like he's just won. The apprentice. He gives me this look. You know the one? That subtle, condescending, I hope you enjoy whatever crusty plate you get handed kind of look. I brace myself. I'm not stupid. I know I'm the emotional support daughter, the family's unpaid therapist, PR cleaner-upper, and designated disappointment. And to my granddaughter, here it comes. The cabin in the mountains. Silence. Not the respectful kind. The oh God. Even Granddad thought she was pathetic kind. I hear my brother stifle a laugh. Then he leans in and whispers, figures. Even the cabin's probably more useful than you. And honestly, fair play, that was mildly clever. For him, my dad. He didn't even look at me. He just adjusted his cufflinks and smiled, like he'd just watched me get ejected from the gene pool. But me? Oh, I smiled too. Not the polite, tea and biscuits kind of smile. No, the kind of smile you wear when you know the punchline to a joke everyone else is too arrogant to see coming. The kind of smile that makes people uneasy, because it doesn't quite fit the script they've written for you. I didn't say a word, didn't argue, didn't beg, just stood up, tucked the little envelope with the deed into my bag and walked out. Because here's the thing no one in that caviar-scented room understood. You only laugh at the useless one until you realize she's the one holding the detonator. And oh darling, I wasn't leaving defeated. I was going to the cabin. And it was about to get very, very interesting. You know how every family's got one? The disappointment. The emotional liability. The we love her, but we wouldn't trust her with the Wi-Fi password. Let alone the family fortune one. Yeah, that's me. I wasn't the golden child. I wasn't even the bronze. I was the smudged participation. Ribbon no one asked for. The unexpected third act of a very middle-class tragedy. I did the unthinkable, you see. I had feelings. Real ones. The kind that don't fit in an Excel spreadsheet or a quarterly investment forecast. While my brother was out there doing deals and hosting networking brunches with men called Sebastian, I was drawing, feeling things, making questionable fashion choices and crying in the bath, like a discount Kate Winslet. I went to art school, because apparently I like debt and disappointment in equal measure, and committed the ultimate sin. I never grew out of it. My dad still calls it my phase. Like the NHS waiting list is a fashion statement and not a symptom of my mental health spiral. He says I'm idealistic, which is rich coming from a man who once called climate change a branding issue. What he means, of course, is emotionally inconvenient. I cry when people cry on telly. I say things like, maybe we should talk about it, instead of silently resenting everyone for 45 years like a normal Brit. So obviously that makes me unstable. My brother, financial prodigy, lover of black coffee and daddies, validation, once told me I'd make a brilliant barista, you know, if all else fails. Like I'm some tragic backup character in his shiny hedge fund biopic. Cheers for that, mate. To them, I've always been fragile. The cracked mug in the back of the cupboard. Not dangerous enough to throw away, but not presentable enough to put out for guests. No business acumen. No ruthless ambition. No desire to financially obliterate my enemies. While sipping espresso in a bespoke waistcoat. Just me. The weird one. The feeler. The flake. And do you know what the most hilarious part is? That cabin they all laughed at. The one they thought was basically a glorified shed. Held more power than both of their bank accounts combined. Turns out, When you stop measuring people by their LinkedIn endorsements and how aggressively they shake hands, sometimes you find the person actually worth trusting. So yeah, I was the family disappointment. But what they didn't realize is disappointments. We've got nothing left to prove, which makes us bloody dangerous, right? So the day after my family collectively decided I was the human, equivalent of an expired gift card, I packed a bag, bought myself a meal deal from the M&S garage, because dignity might be dead, but smoked ham and mustard lives on, and drove out to the cabin. And when I say cabin, I don't mean some Pinterest-worthy, oat milk and fairy lights woodland retreat. No, I mean the kind of place you'd find in a true crime documentary narrated by David Tennant. The drive up was so dramatic I half expected a BBC orchestra to pop out of the hedges. Fog so thick you could have lost a toddler in it. Crows glaring like they were owed money. And this one tree, massive, looming, giving off serious, I've seen things energy. Proper haunted forest vibes. Basically, it felt less like I was going to claim an inheritance and more like I was walking straight into an episode of Inside Number 9. Then I saw it. The cabin. And listen, I use the term cabin very loosely here. It looked less like a charming rustic getaway, and more like ambition itself had come here to die, sob into a moldy cushion and give up. The porch was wonky. The windows, filthy. The whole structure looked like one stiff, breeze away from collapsing, into itself like a failed souffle. But here's the thing, I had nothing to lose. No job, no expectations, no illusions that my family would suddenly love me because I turned up with a tin of shortbread and a new personality, just a very expensive grudge and a vague sense of, well, why not? So I went in. The front door creaked open with the kind of melodrama usually reserved for gothic novels and your mate's Facebook status after a breakup. Inside, cold, musty. Cobwebs like the ceiling had grown its own anxiety disorder. And furniture, if you could call it that looked like it died in 1974 and was still haunting the place out of spite. There was a lamp in the corner, I kid you not, shaped like a goose, just standing there, judging me. I sat on a sofa that emitted a puff of dust, so intense I thought it might have actually been someone's cremated hopes and dreams. The air smelled like mildew and generational trauma, and for a moment, I genuinely considered leaving, just walking out, driving home, pretending the whole thing never happened. Let my dad and brother keep their smug, millionaire glow and their emotionally stunted champagne toasts. Let them believe they'd won, again. But then, in the corner of the fireplace, tucked just behind a warped floorboard, I saw something. An envelope, sealed, yellowed, my name on the front, in Granddad's handwriting, which is exactly when things stopped being sad and started getting very, very weird. So there I am, in a cabin that smells like forgotten pensions and dead squirrels, trying not to think too hard about how I might have inhaled actual asbestos when I spot it, tucked in the fireplace like something out of a Dickensian fever dream. An envelope, not just shoved there, mind. No, this was sealed with wax. Because apparently Granddad fancied himself a cross between James Bond and bloody Dumbledore. My name's on it, written in his neat, stern handwriting. The sort of handwriting that says, I've survived a world war and once punched a banker. It already smells like secrets and judgment. So I sit on the arm of the goose lamp, don't ask, crack the wax and open the letter, and it starts like this. My dear girl. Right, pause. Already crying. Pathetic, because he never said things like that when he was alive. I got a lot of stand up straight and, you're not wearing that, are you? But dear girl? That hit harder than a John Lewis Christmas advert. Anyway, I keep reading. If you're reading this, then the jackal's got the money. Which obviously is his very diplomatic way of saying, your dad and brother won the race to the trust fund, like rats at a buffet, but you got the legacy. And that's when I realized I hadn't been left a crusty murder cabin. I'd inherited something else, something bigger, and possibly illegal. Apparently this cabin wasn't just a sad, creaky house for emotionally exhausted art school dropouts. It was a vault, not the safe-in-the-wall kind, I don't know. This was a whole system. Encrypted drives, secret documents, a quiet, well-hidden empire built behind decades of polite Sunday roasts and awkward silences. Turns out Granddad wasn't just rich, he was clever. The kind of clever that makes you very popular in Monaco and very annoying at HMRC. The letter went on. Your father and brother would burn the world for a pound and a pat on the head. You, on the other hand, might actually think about what's worth saving, which is, I think, the most backhanded compliment I've ever received. And I once got told I was the kind of pretty that's better in low lighting. So that's saying something. But he was right. They would torch the planet if it meant an extra share, portfolio, and a new Tesla to show off at the golf club. Me? I care. Unfortunately. Painfully. Inconveniently. Because here's the twist, yeah? I might have looked like the weak one. The one who cried too easily. Hugged too long. Didn't understand profit margins or networking, or how to hold a glass of wine without panicking. But what I did have, what they'd never understand, was a bloody conscience, which, let's be honest, is practically an endangered species in my family. So yeah, they got the money, the press photos, the legacy, but I got this. A letter written in love, spite, and ink probably older than I am, a secret that could blow everything wide open, and the keys to something far bigger than any of them could buy. Trust. Actual, genuine trust, from the one man who never told me. He loved me, but apparently trusted me to protect an empire. Typical, really. Not a hug, not a family heirloom. Just a 3-page essay, a half-burnt fireplace, and the weight of several offshore accounts I hadn't even opened yet. Brilliant. Right. So after the letter that basically said, "Congrats, you're now the keeper of secrets," and probably some mild felonies, I started poking around the cabin like I was in an episode of Location. Location, Unhinged Inheritance Edition. I didn't expect much. Maybe another dusty fireplace, a haunted rocking chair, or Granddad's ghost waiting to tell me off for wearing ripped jeans indoors. But instead, I found a bookshelf, which again doesn't sound that dramatic. Except this one didn't behave like normal bookshelves. You know, the kind that hold books and disappointments. This one clicked. Literally. One of the spines, the art of war naturally, made a noise when I touched it. And before I could say, "Oh, brilliant," we're in a Scooby-Doo episode now. The whole bloody thing creaked forward. Behind it, a trapdoor. Because of course there's a trapdoor. At this point I had 2 options. 1, be sensible, back away. Call someone qualified. 2, open it, climb down, and risk getting murdered by whatever cursed secrets Granddad left behind. Naturally, I chose emotional instability and bad choices. Like any self-respecting woman with unresolved childhood trauma and a passive-aggressive relationship with her father. So I opened it. The stairs creaked. Obviously, because this place can't do anything without a bit of dramatics. And what I found at the bottom? Not a wine cellar, I'll tell you that much. It was a hidden study. Steel-reinforced walls, fluorescent lights flickering like they were one power surge away from a horror scene. It looked like Jason Bourne's therapy room. Functional, cold, secretive. The sort of space where men in suits would say things like, "It's classified," before vanishing into thin air. And in the middle, on a pedestal, because subtlety is for peasants, was a digital terminal. Not a laptop, not a PC, a terminal. The kind of setup that screams, "Someone's done shady things here," and gotten away with it. I sat down. The chair hissed like it had opinions, booted it up. And when the screen flickered on, it asked for a retina scan. Of course it did. Because Granddad didn't trust passwords. He trusted DNA. I leaned in, expecting it to laugh in my face. But no, it beeped, unlocked. And suddenly, there it was. Everything. Cryptocurrency portfolios with more zeros than I knew how to emotionally process. Maps of assets across Europe, Asia, South America. Legal documents. Offshore accounts. Encrypted files labeled things like Fallout Protocol and in case of betrayal. You know who. Subtle. Granddad, very subtle. Oh. And a file of blackmail so potent it could probably shut down Parliament, ruin several minor royals, and get 3 BBC presenters cancelled before breakfast. And it was all coded. All protected. All hidden. In my name. Not his, not my dad's, not my brother's. Mine. The one they called Fragile. The one who once cried at a DFS advert and couldn't figure out Excel. The one who, according to my brother, would never survive in the real world. And yet, here I was, the only one Granddad trusted with his life's work, his empire, his secrets. Not the successful son, not the golden boy grandson. Just me, the art school disappointment, with a trust fund built out of espionage and tax avoidance. Honestly, I nearly laughed. Then I nearly cried. Then I laughed again, because crying in a bunker full of international crimes just felt a bit much. Even for me. 3 days. That's how long it took. 3 whole days before my brother, financial wunderkind, trust fund golden boy, human LinkedIn profile in chinos, turned up on the doorstep of my haunted tax dodger cabin, flashing that oily, toothpaste ad grin, like he hadn't spent our childhood calling me weird for liking books without graphs in them. He didn't even knock, just strolled up the gravel path like the main character in his own biopic. Hair slicked back, designer jacket, that stupid scarf he wears for vibes. Honestly, if the wind had caught him right, he might have ascended straight into the Instagram influencer multiverse. Anyway, he gives me the kind of smile people usually reserve for charity. Shop volunteers and drunk aunts at weddings. Just checking on you, he said, all faux sympathy and teeth. Must be rough, getting the short end of the will. Oh bless. So brave of him to come all this way just to gloat. I didn't even flinch. Just nodded, said something vague and soothing like, "It is what it is," which in British translates to, "I will bury you with a smile and you'll thank me for it." So I invited him in, let him see the peeling wallpaper, the cracked floorboards, the lingering scent of despair mixed with mildew, even offered him tea, out of a chipped mug with "World's okayest daughter" printed on the side. A subtle touch of irony. I do try. And he bought it. All of it. Sat there like the smug little banker he is, knees crossed, telling me how Dad's investing in private jets now. Apparently they're more efficient. For short-notice international meetings. Right. And I'm the Queen of Sheba, living in a budget horror film set because I like the aesthetic. Anyway, he gets up. Wanders around. Starts judging things with his eyes, like I hadn't clocked him doing that since we were kids, and he used to inspect my GCSE artwork like he was head of Tate Modern. And then, he leans on the bookshelf. Click. My spine went cold, because I'd forgotten, completely forgotten, that the bookshelf wasn't just for show. It was the door. The literal, actual, dramatic door to the rabbit hole of digital espionage, offshore secrets, and emotional vindication. The shelf creaked open, revealing the trapdoor. He froze. I didn't move. Just sipped my tea and raised an eyebrow. He turned to me, pale as milk, eyes wide like a child who's just learned Santa isn't real, and neither is trickle-down economics. What is that? Oh, my sweet, oblivious moron. I set my mug down, walked over slowly, peered down at the cold, steel-lined descent to his psychological ruin. That? I said, with the serenity of a woman who'd been told she was useless one too many times. That's your worst nightmare, darling. And the best part? He believed me. He actually backed away, like the staircase itself was going to grab his ankles and drag him into therapy. I've never seen him that quiet. Not even when Dad caught him crying after losing Monopoly. To me in 2007. He left not long after. Didn't ask questions, didn't press. Just muttered something about needing to get back to the city. And important meetings, which we all know is rich people code for panic attack in a Waitrose car park. And me? I stood at the cabin door, watched him drive off in his Tesla, and whispered, "Bye now. Send love to Daddy's jet." Because for the first time in years, I wasn't the joke. I wasn't the punchline. I was the problem, and I was just getting started. So naturally, after my brother's little hissy fit, it wasn't long before dear old Dad decided to grace the cabin with his presence. Because when your empire comes with biometric locks and digital skeletons, you can bet your last Chippy Tea voucher Dad's going to show up. Chest puffed out like he's still the head of some corporate tiger den. He storms in, all swagger and "I'm still the king here," which, if you ask me, is the emotional equivalent of a toddler insisting they're the boss of the toy box. First thing he sees? The terminal. The digital command center of Grandpa's secret empire, humming quietly under the flickering, fluorescent lights and the files. All those offshore accounts, encrypted documents, and dossiers so spicy they'd make even Piers Morgan blink. His face drains faster than the gravy at a Sunday roast. Then he blurts out, and this is the quote that'll live rent-free in my nightmares. "He left this to you, not me?" Oh, sweetie. I wish I could say I was surprised. I just smiled, pulling out the letter. The one where Grandpa basically penned a novel titled, "Why Your Dad is a Bit of a Wally." I let him read it. Passages where Grandpa called him reckless, untrustworthy, and, my personal favorite, morally bankrupt. I swear Dad's face went from a sheepish pink to a deep, royal purple faster than you can say inheritance lawyer. But the pièce de résistance? He had the audacity, the absolute gall, to turn around and say I didn't know what I was doing. As if, meanwhile, the bloke who just tried to log into the terminal using 1234, as the password was the pinnacle of competence. Honestly, I was torn between laughter and the urge to facepalm. So hard I might have cracked my skull. He pressed a few buttons. Nothing happened. Tried again. Nothing. Looked at me like I'd personally rigged the whole system to explode in his face. "You'll never manage this," he said, with all the confidence of a man who can barely manage his own shoelaces. I just sipped my tea. Because here's the irony. The man who called me useless, the emotional inconvenience of the family, was about as useful as a chocolate teapot in a digital fortress. And yet the entire legacy, the real power once was in my hands. I was the one Grandpa trusted, not the loud, entitled boys throwing tantrums over a few measly million. Me, the one who cried at the end of Marley, and me and couldn't balance a checkbook to save her life. Dad eventually stormed out, red-faced, defeated, muttering something about family loyalty and how things should have been handled. I watched him go, feeling that weird mix of pity, vindication, and I can't believe I'm related to this Muppet. And you know what? For the first time in a long time, I felt something close to power, not the flashy kind. Not the look at me, I'm a billionaire now kind, but the kind that comes from knowing you're the one holding the keys. Literally. So there I was, with more money than I ever dared dream, and an empire hidden behind what looked like the world's most depressing cabin. A cabin that, let's be honest, had all the charm of a damp council flat and about the same level of cleanliness. Now you'd think with that kind of cash, I'd be booking a one-way trip to some private island, right? Picture it, me lying back in a hammock, sipping something ridiculously overpriced, while my family scrambles over LinkedIn, updates trying to look like they've got their lives together. But nah, that's not me. I'm not the kind to just sell out and splash the cash like a toddler in a sweet shop. I wanted something better, or at least less obvious than a new Lamborghini. So I did what any emotionally scarred art school dropout with unexpected trust fund access would do. I restructured the whole bloody thing. Yeah, funneled half of the stash into anonymous humanitarian funds. Because if there's one thing my family never understood, it's the concept of giving a damn about anyone but themselves. And the other half? Locked down so tight, you'd need Sherlock Holmes, a PhD in cryptography, and a particularly nosy MI5 agent just to get a sniff of it. I set up ironclad protections against exploitation. Because God forbid the vultures get their claws on this. No more reckless spending sprees, no more greedy little fights at Sunday roasts. Just a system so complex, even my dad's private jet couldn't fly over it without permission. Oh, and the best bit? The access codes aren't your usual dull password rubbish. No password 123 or let mine nonsense. Nah, I'm talking about phrases only I would understand. Like chippy tea on a rainy Tuesday, or missing the bus to Tesco. Because Grandpa knew, didn't he? Power isn't about the stuff you own. It's about knowing who should own it. And he trusted me with that. Funny how the useless granddaughter is the one who's now running the show, while Dad and brother argue over who gets the Bentley keys. Meanwhile, I'm quietly sitting on a mountain of secret assets, humanitarian causes, and enough digital firepower to make MI6 sweat. I didn't sell out. I leveled up. And honestly, that feels a lot better than flashing cash and pretending it makes you happy. Oh, the irony. The delicious, steaming irony of it all. So after a few weeks of me quietly ruling the kingdom, hidden beneath the cabin, casually managing a multi-million-pound secret empire while my dad and brother were busy polishing their egos, suddenly everyone decided I was the family favorite again. First, my brother hit my phone with a 6-paragraph novella titled On Family Unity and Why You Should Share Your Toys. Spoiler, it read like a badly written LinkedIn post from someone who thinks synergy is an emotional state. Then Dad, bless him, tried his luck too. Offered me a role in his company. Said it was something important. And that I was the perfect fit for a new position. Which, knowing Dad's vocabulary, probably translated to chief emotional distraction. Someone to smile and nod while he makes questionable decisions in silk ties. I invited them both for dinner. Because honestly, what better way to say, you missed the boat? Chaps than over a nice bit of steak and a lot of polite British hostility. They showed up dressed like they were on the set of Downton Abbey meets The Apprentice. I sat back, watched their eyes dart nervously around the room. Especially to the wine cabinet, which, funnily enough, hides another safe behind it. I didn't mention that. That would be rude. The conversation drifted to the inevitable question. So what's this all about? The accounts, the money? I smiled. Because honestly, why ruin a good thing by being honest? You wouldn't know what to do with it, I said sweetly, letting my voice drip with all the subtle venom of a pub landlord refusing service. It involves empathy. Their faces went from hopeful to confused to furious in under 3 seconds. It was like watching toddlers denied the last packet of crisps. Dad tried to recover, throwing in a few awkward comments about family responsibilities and legacy, but honestly, I was too busy enjoying my victory. They left with their tails between their legs, muttering about how things might have been different. If only I'd been more... What was it again? Oh right, reasonable. I watched them go, closed the door, and for once I slept like a baby. Not the screaming, crying baby I used to be when they called me useless, but a smug, satisfied baby who knows she just won the game. Quietly, without anyone noticing until it was too late. And you know what? I'm still smiling. Because this is just the beginning. Money's loud, isn't it? It slaps you in the face, flashes its gold teeth, and tries to convince you it's the answer to all your problems. But ego? Oh, ego is louder. The obnoxious neighbor who never shuts up, mowing their lawn at 7 a.m. on a Sunday and playing Dad's important meeting, voicemail on loop. Yet silence is the weapon they never saw coming. When they laughed at me getting that cabin, you'd think it was some sort of tragic punchline, like I'd just been sentenced to a lifetime of council flat charm and damp socks. But the joke's on them, because that cabin wasn't a punishment. It was a masterclass in playing the long game. Turns out, I inherited the skeleton key to every door they thought was theirs. Grandpa didn't pick the loudest, the flashiest, or the most useful. No, he picked the one who'd stay quiet, keep her head down, and not drown the family legacy in private jets and midlife crises. Now here I am, living quietly in the mountains, with a cup of tea in one hand and a fire crackling in the hearth. The kind of peace they never imagined for me, or maybe never wanted me to have. And beneath my floorboards, a legacy so secure, so carefully guarded, they'll never touch it. Not because I'm bitter, though let's be honest, who wouldn't be? But because I finally learned something important. Not every family deserves access to your story, your power, or your worth. Blood doesn't make you family. Effort does. Loyalty does. And frankly, a bit of respect wouldn't hurt either. I'm done playing their game. Done being the useless one, the punchline, the afterthought. I'm the quiet storm, the one who showed up when it mattered most. And honestly, it feels bloody good. So here's the takeaway. Sometimes the one who looks like they've lost it all is the one who's winning without even trying to prove it. Because the real power, it's knowing when to smile, when to walk away, when to quietly hold the keys to everything they thought they owned. Cheers to that.